Hi everyone, welcome and thank you all for being here today. If you haven't yet already, there's free chai over there, so grab a cup if you can. So today I will be moderating the Bootstrap to Breakthrough Scaling Your Brand on a Budget panel. I'm so excited to have these amazing entrepreneurs, each of whom have built their brand and business from the ground up. Today, we'll be exploring their journey, hearing about their challenges, how they overcame them, and dive into their social media strategies that help them build loyal and cult following. So I will have a Q&A at the end, so if you have any questions you want to ask the panelists, please feel free to jot them down, and we'll open up the floor. So we'll get started. So I'm going to do a little introduction of everyone here. I'll start with Leung to my right. Ho is the founder of 12 Pal, grooming lifestyle brand and retail space in New York City. Since 2018, under his leadership, 12 Pal has evolved into a media agency collaborating with brands like Red Bull and Visa and growing to over 3 million followers and with 150 million monthly views. Next up, I have Florence Shin, the co-founder of Covry, an eyewear brand known for its inclusive designs and innovative fit, specifically for the Asian faces. Launched from a Kickstarter campaign in 2015, Covry has grown into a successful DTC e-commerce business with a flagship store in Costa Mesa, California. Next up, I have Reva, Bhatt, the founder of Rooted, a creative agency and collective that produces integrated campaigns and events to amplify the South Asian voices. Rooted has partnered with brands like Nike, Mercedes-Maybach, and Instagram to create notable, culturally driven campaigns. Last but not least, I have Sanyal, the co-founder of Kolkata Chai Company, an omni-channel food and beverage brand bringing authentic chai to the Western world. He and his brother opened America's first chai cafe in 2019 in New York City. Ani lives at the intersection of culture and commerce and creativity and wants to help fellow first-generation entrepreneurs to do the same. Let's give a big round of applause to welcome our amazing panelists. Okay, now that you all know a little bit about them, let's jump into some questions to dive deeper into their stories. So the first question I have, so let's start from the very beginning, like the early stages of your business and reflecting on those moments. If you could go back in time and give yourself one piece of advice or do something different during those early stages, what would it be and why? I'll start with Ho.
I think I would tell myself, young grasshopper, everything will be okay. And I think that in short, that pretty much just wraps up, like, when you start your own business, it's like having your own child, and just like there's not only just a financial challenge that it comes with, it's also the emotional challenge. And sometimes you always get like, you feel like you really want to have it grow fast. You want it to really see it succeed. But at the end of the day, you really have to have patience, and there's gonna be a lot of emotional challenges that you have to go through to make sure that I went through a lot of that, and I feel like at some point in time I look back on it and I look back and be like, it was okay. And I just had to be patient through it. So I always look at every single challenge that I receive now, and I think about it as like, hey, 2 years from now, we'll look back at this and it's gonna be okay.
Thank you. How about you, Florence?
So one piece of advice that I would give myself is I want to echo first off, Ho, like everything will be okay. But I think there's something that we didn't do early on, and that was setting really clear goals for ourselves. And what I mean by that is like having a really clear goal, but also having a clear structure and strategy of how you're going to get there. And I think especially as entrepreneurs, you have so many decisions that we have to make every single day, and when you have a really clear goal, it's also going to help with our decision making as well. It's going to tell us if it's taking us closer to that or if it's taking us in a different direction. So that's something that I think it has definitely been helping us as we continue to grow.
Hi guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for the wonderful question. I think for me, I'm in the creative services industry, so for me it's a little bit different, and I think looking back at it, we had so many ideas of all the ways that we could grow and all the things that we wanted to do, and a big lesson for me throughout the years have been really just to focus on quality and not quantity. I think doing a few things really strategically that align with your values and your ethos in the beginning few years has been really, really valuable to us in the creative services business, because it really defines who we are as a brand and what we believe in.
Yeah, hard to add to all the brilliant stuff being said already, but I think for me, early on, you're going to take a lot of L's, and I think it's really hard to embrace, stacking up losses when you're early into something, but building the intellectual framework to understand how to make decisions through that so that you can apply that in the future. I think that's the big one, is understanding that every loss is going to help you get better and understand how to avoid it in the future when you have a lot more on the line. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, entrepreneurship is like a journey. There's a lot of like ups and downs, and we learn from them. So thank you for sharing. We're gonna switch gears and talk about pinch me moments. I know as Asians we like to not talk about these like wins that we have, so I'm giving you guys an opportunity. I would love to share like a favorite pinch me moment that you've experienced. It can be a business milestone, a collaboration, or exciting partnership. I would love to hear and like celebrate that with you here today.
Pinch me. No, I think the first moment I had that was back around COVID 2020. And that was when we lost pretty much our entire book of business, because we're a barbershop. And during that time, all close contact businesses were ordered to close. And we couldn't open until phase 2, and that was like a 3-month gap. So at that time, returning back to business was the busiest week ever. And we had maybe 80 clients that just walked through the door every single day, and that was like tremendous for us. But right after the first flood, the next week afterwards was a complete drought. And it was insane because we had less than 4 clients that came through every day. And I started looking around at the neighborhood, and I was like, wow, this is crazy, because is this the new norm? Are we gonna have 4 customers that come in every single day, and what am I gonna do with my team? How are we gonna break bread? And I looked at that situation, and I was like, this is not good. So I turned to my team, and I was like, this is not just us problem, this is a neighborhood problem. There's a stigma with Asian Americans and COVID, and we have to find a way to overcome that. And so we came up with a little idea, and we said, hey, why don't we just show people that it's safe in Chinatown, and let's throw a barbecue. And as if that was the starting point, but then I think the hurdle there was really to incentivize people to come. And we also put out a video and said, hey, if you spend $45 anywhere in Chinatown, we'll give you a voucher to come back if we're still open. Well, I think the thing was hey, to come back, right? And to come into the neighborhood and make sure that, it's okay. Us and City Hall is not that big of a difference, but when you walk from Chinatown to City Hall has people running all around. They're at the Whole Foods, but you come down to Chinatown, it's a ghost town. And we put that video out. I woke up the next morning, it went viral. And I didn't even expect that. But we just wanted to put the word out there that Chinatown needed help. And seeing it go viral with over 400 shares overnight made me realize, wow, there's a lot of leverage here. And there's things that we can do even though we can't operate. And so the next step was, how can we tell our story? And we ended up posting up another story talking about how it's important and the type of impact that we can drive through sharing our story of the community through social media. And I remember waking up another morning to over massive notifications, but they were saying Bella brought me here. And I was like, what? Bella who? Bella what? And so I was just sipping, all the notifications just kept coming in. And we gained I think 13,000 followers overnight. And I found out later on it was Bella Hadid. Yeah! And I was like, what? That was crazy, because I never expected a celebrity of her caliber to shout us out. And apparently our story that we told about how we brought people back into the neighborhood, made it across her page, and she shared it. And that's like my little proud moment, but I got this little DM with her, and I'm like, and she's like, so proud of you guys. And I think that was when I realized that we could really create some momentum as a community, that social media was our leverage. And we ended up doubling down, and like a couple of years later, we ended up doing deals with like large companies like Visa and NFL, and like that was when I realized that, okay, wow, like we're here now. We're here, we're doing this, and how can we continue to leverage our success to make impact? And that's become something very different, but we'll cover that later.
So I want to share my very first Pinch Me moment, and that all kind of started with our Kickstarter campaign. We launched a crowdfunding campaign right before we officially launched Covry. And I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with Covry, but we're an inclusive eyewear brand. We design frames for diverse facial structures. And this is something we would have thought the industry would have already done at this time, but they hadn't. And so we really wanted to put a crowdfunding campaign together to test the market. And I remember like the first few weeks were really, really slow. We had all of our friends and family back the campaign, but it kind of just died, and I was getting so nervous because I was like, oh, I don't think this is gonna work. And around that same time, we heard back from one of the editors that we had pitched. His name was David Yee, who is now the founder of Very Good Light Skin. And he took a chance on us, and as soon as that interview went live, we had all these massive publications reaching out, including NBC, Fast Company, Cosmopolitan. And so that was a really big pinch me moment because it validated the interest in the product, and it helped us actually reach 300% of our initial fundraising goal. So we closed with that, and that was probably just my biggest pinch me moment.
Oh, I thought for us, it was, I think we've had a few, but the more recent one, I guess, is we've done a lot of community programming throughout the years, specifically for South Asian creatives, and trying to include other communities to come and participate. And this year, it was really, really important for us to launch a wellness initiative, and I think that really came from me personally. I have been invested in my own wellness journey, and I strength train, and I was, regardless of where I was, whether it was in America, whether it was in Europe, whether it was literally even in India, there were just not spaces for people that looked like me. When I would lift in Mumbai, they would look at me like I was crazy. And so I just really saw a need to see more of just even the larger Asian community in wellness spaces. So with Rooted, we launched a wellness initiative this year. And it was really about reclaiming the narrative and how we also, a lot of these practices with yoga, meditation, a lot of Eastern wellness practices actually come from our culture. So why aren't we seen in these campaigns? Why aren't we the head of, whatever brands and leisure stories? So for us, it was really about reclaiming that space, and we launched that initiative this year, and I think the biggest pinch me moment was we got a collaboration with Nike. It was 2 years in the making, so I think it was it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere, but that's oftentimes how it is with businesses. A lot of the work is behind the scenes, and so people don't realize kind of all the things that went around to make that collaboration happen. 2 years in the making, I integrated myself into every single ecosystem they possibly had, and when it made sense and the opportunity came, we ended up doing a yoga and meditation kind of workshop, and then we brought in Ayurveda as well into that workshop, and that to me was really, really beautiful because it was the first time for me at least that I saw South Asians and Asians in general be centered in the wellness conversation. I'm not saying we're the first, I hate when people do that, but it was a really, really, really big moment for us as a creative agency, yeah.
Do you hate when I say that Kolkata Chai is the first chai company in America? You hate it? Getting cooked. My biggest pinch me moment, pretty recent. 2 weeks ago, we announced our newest investor and business partner, who happens to be the actor and comedian Hassan Minhaj. And so, thank you. It was, again, to Reva's point, 10, 11 months in the making. And as a company that started, on 3rd and Avenue B and has kind of built this brick by brick from the ground up to bring on someone, who's a generational storyteller and kind of sees culture the same way we do, in that our niche cultures can be accessible to everybody. We're really excited about kind of this next phase of the business. And it's still kind of surreal to me, but I'm excited.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's so important to celebrate the wins. I know being an entrepreneur, you're doing everything every day and it feels like a hustle. So thank you for sharing all your wins. And I know a lot of it comes from hardship from COVID, which has been crazy for all of us. So thank you for sharing. So as we all know, social media today plays a huge role as Bootstrap's brands and entrepreneurs, and for all of you guys here. So I want to dive into my favorite topic, which is social media. And I know each of you seem to have a very solid grasp on it seems like it. And I know you guys use it to grow and scale your business. So the first question I have for you guys is, can you guys spill your secret sauce? What is your current social media strategy? What kind of content is working? Just let us know, maybe share a growth strategy.
Very recently, I think social media has evolved so much over the years, actually post-COVID. If you think about it, 2020 was the rise of short format content, which we know as Reels and TikToks, and it was given, it pretty much gave the opportunity for commerce to be done in a completely different way. So now it democratized the avenues of promotion. So now you could be anybody with a phone and you can create content and it can become promotional leverage for your business marketing. And I think that that was everybody breaking into the industry, 2020. I think now, 2024, when you fast forward, we have the new generation of content creators, influencers, young 17-year-old kids who are now thinking hey, I want to be an influencer as a career model. And I think that changes the landscape of the space in general. And what I mean by that is you have to look at where people spend their time, and all of our time is now spent on our phones. And if you think about that, that's where the real estate is. A lot of the times we think about where we position our business, I want to open my business next to Sweetgreens because we're going to be a healthy, health-conscious business, right? That's real estate play, right? But now the same thing is how do we do that on the digital real estate world? And I think that it's how do you make the right collaborations and intentional partnerships with people that resonate with your brand? How do you build in different plots of land across the different platforms? So the analogy that I'm making here is that I think right now we're in the era where a lot of, we've passed this gold rush. We've passed this era where everybody is making all these buildings, and now it's but there's a lot of real estate still up for grabs. How do you go for that? The secret sauce in our team right now we're past the age of creation. We're in the age of curation. How do you curate your portfolio, your real estate portfolio? How do you choose where to distribute your content? If you look at a lot of leading creators like Mr. Beast, they got channels in Spanish. Our team, we just did a deal in Shanghai, China. It was a 6-figure deal, but they brought us over there to do some content for one of the largest beauty expos. But for us, we ended up translating all our content in Chinese. And so when we were talking to the sponsors there, everything was dubbed. And so if you think about it, the game is wide open. And I spent several months in Asia, and they're a little behind in this democratization of social media and how it's used in commerce. So I think there's a lot of opportunity still available. Depends on how you want to build it.
Our focus at Covry is always to focus on community. And so there's several ways that we do this, and we do this by actively engaging with them, right? So something we do is we take time to actively engage with them on social media. And I don't mean this just by responding to comments you get or DMs that you get, but going into the community and engaging with them on their posts and showing them love and support in the same way that we would treat our friends and family, right? So that's one way that we actively engage with them. Another way that we do that is by hosting a lot of events that are more intimate, where we can really connect with them. So we invite them to events that are not just sales focused, right? We're not trying to just sell them a pair of frames. We're trying to connect with them on another level. So we'll invite them to different workshops with us. We'll do like fun things, calligraphy workshops. We'll do crafts. We'll do vision boarding. And I think what this does, it gets people that come to the events to actually connect with each other. And I think that's where the magic happens. That's where real community is built. And yeah, I think just by actively engaging with them, we can really humanize the brand, and it shows them that there's real people, there's a real voice behind the brand that they're interacting with. And I think this ultimately just builds that customer loyalty that we all want as Bootstrap businesses.
My journey has been a little bit not as traditional, I would say. I've been in the industry for about 10 plus years, and as a creative director, a stylist, working predominantly in the fashion, beauty, and music space. And so for me, we actually built an in-person community before we built an online community. It was a little backwards in that way, but I think as all kind of businesses go, sometimes your idea is bigger than you. And so for us, we were building in real time with our active communities in London, New York, and LA, and as well as India. And so for us, when those communities were coming together, it was about those IRL connections. And for me, it was really about connecting people, whether it was for work or friendship, whatever it was. I saw a gap in general for creatives that looked like us. And so for me, it was really about that in-person community building. We didn't even have a social media until like 2 years in. It was just something that we never thought about because we didn't think that we weren't selling anything, right? So for us, it was like, okay, well, I'm not really selling anything. I don't know, at first we didn't have a social media, and then now that we do, I think for us a big thing online is how do we maintain that in-person relationship and community that we've built online and not just share things to share things. I think sometimes there's a lot that people put out in general and not all of it is good. For us, it's really been about how do we share things that feel authentically us, that are still innovative and creative in our niche genre, and how do we also, this is something actually that we're thinking of in the future of like, how do we have the bandwidth to create original content that feels special, that feels unique, and it also takes time to tell those stories versus just quick and snippy kind of content. So that's kind of been our journey, and we're still iterating every single day, which is the beauty of it, I think.
Yeah. Try to keep it quick. Two things. I think the first thing is that social media is ultimately the great equalizer, meaning you don't have to have a massive budget or a marketing budget or a content budget to be able to reach the right people. For us, to Reva's point, we started kind of back to front. We started as a brick and mortar business first, built a community, and then went to CPG and beyond. But we were putting out a volume of content that was like viraling bigger brands and people with actual budgets, and it was all off a phone or all off of people that understood how to do content. So I think the first thing, if you're starting a new business or if you're in the middle of your business, understanding that content is still the greatest equalizer. It gives you the biggest opportunity to leverage what you've built to reach new eyeballs. That has to be the baseline. The second thing, which I think all of us are living through now, and when it comes to secret sauce, I think a lot of people are still kind of figuring this out. Social media has totally changed in the past 18 months. It's gone from being audience-based to being interest-based, right? If you look through your algorithm, you are no longer even seeing content from people you follow half the time. You're seeing content from other things that you like, directionally related to it. So obviously Twitter, one of the biggest changes. TikTok, followings on TikTok don't really matter. It's all about your interests. And so if you're a brand, your content approach should be, how do I create things for people in my target audience that is related to their interests? And that's how you should kind of like backdoor your way into it. It can't be about, here's our latest product drop, like no one cares. It has to be about, if you love coffee, well, here's where our beans are from, and here's why it matters, and here's how it's sourced, and then we're gonna backdoor you into understanding, why our brand matters. So that's the biggest shift that I would kind of urge everyone to sit with and reconcile, is like following no longer matters. It's about your interest-based content approach. So.
I think a lot of what you said, they all said, is not just a focus on just content, building community, like interest-based community around your brand is like one of the greatest strategies for social media. People with social media at the end of the day is social. You want to be social in person and on your app as well. Okay, switching gears, I would love to know if you can walk us through a story or strategy behind one of your most successful social media campaigns, and what was your thought process and what made it stand out?
Successful, wow. You want to take this one first?
Anyone, we can go out of order.
I don't know if this is like our most successful, this is the most exciting, was when we had Ali Wong wear our glasses. She was somebody that I always really loved, and I'm also very excited for her Netflix special that's coming out soon. But literally all we did was DM her, she responded, and we sent her glasses, and next thing we knew, she was wearing our frames. And I share this story because I think a lot of times we feel like some things are out of reach because maybe we don't know the right people or we don't have the right connections. But you know, as you were saying earlier, social media it's like an equalizer. It makes everyone and anyone accessible. And we can literally just go on our phone, we can DM, think about like 10, 20 people that you want to work with, whether they're brands or celebrities, and craft a really personal message and reach out and see what happens. Most of them probably will not respond, but there's a chance that they might, and that's when something magical can really happen.
For us, it was this partnership we did with Instagram. It was a partnership that we did with a few different people, specifically We So Foreign and Instagram, and it was for this huge music festival that we created called Frequency Brown. And I think for me, I think the way that you define success is also really, really important. For us, it was just that we had the time and space to really think about a 360 integrated campaign, including social media. And we had 5 international DJs, 1 live performer, as well as a lot of collaborators, and we were able to really partner with all of them authentically to create content and launch a campaign that made sense for every single person without feeling like we were just selling a ticket, because it was a free event as well. So I think for us, it was really just having the time to do that and plan. Sometimes people send creative, on the other side of it, I also have been talent, so I've gotten briefs that you just are trying to sell something and it feels like you're just trying to tell a story that feels really inauthentic, and you're forcing me in on this weird game that you're doing. And I think that for us, it's really, really important that if we do have collaborators, that those stories that they're also sharing and that we're collaborating on are also meaningful and make sense for their brand. And I think for us, that Instagram campaign really, really made sense.
Like a win-win situation.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, this happened recently. We've had a couple hits, but this is the one that sticks out. 2 weeks ago, it was National Chai Day, which is a totally BS thing. It's not a real thing. It's already out there. And every year, we do this like really big sale online, and it's National Chai Day. And essentially, it's just a way to kind of trigger people to be like, all right, I'm thinking about chai today. Let me buy it. I get my Mad Men on, every once a year. And so for this year, we brought on Hassan to kind of announce National Chai Day, and we decided to do it through his platform. And you guys should all go to his profile and see it. But this idea that we came up with together was, how do you take something that's a BS marketing holiday and turn it into something that people can actually laugh at or care about, or just create a positive brand impression? And so he created this entire commercial, which was basically fake holiday, real chai. And that contrast of, hey, we know this is BS, but we know our chai is actually not BS, and you can actually try it and call me on that if it is. But this idea of like meeting your audience where it's at, I think that's what a lot of people are saying is, when you're selling a product, you know you're selling a product, but you don't always have to do it through the traditional way. So yeah, fake holiday, real chai, just kind of a big branded moment for us.
Like, social media is fun, it can be entertaining. You have something to add?
Cool. So I think where I was stuck was measuring success. And I think along the journey, there were many milestones that we hit that made us feel very successful at the time. Like when we first made our first million on TikTok, and then when we first reached 100 million views a month. Like all these milestones all made us feel really good. But up until recently, I think we had to challenge ourselves and really define success in a different way. And that all came back, like we had to talk with the team, and when I came back from Asia, I had a short trip there, about 2 months doing some R&D, and I realized that the opportunity was much bigger than we really imagined for ourselves. But we couldn't just move with catching up with our own growth and the next level of success being maybe, I mean, just this week we just hit 1 million on YouTube, but we got the gold plaque. And we all opened it as a team, but you would think we'd all be like super hyped about it. But to be honest, when we opened it, we were like, oh, okay. Like it just didn't hit as hard as our first million on TikTok. And I think that success has transformed into something else for us now. And I think it's really it's the tension behind what we do. And it's no longer about the numbers, it's no longer about the dollars, it's about how far we can get to challenge ourselves to get to the next level. And the most recent project that I brought my team on was when we went to Shanghai to do one of the largest beauty expos in the world. And that was really cool because it was a deal that we pulled off that we never imagined. And now it's come to approaching different challenges that we can all look back and be like, that was part of the journey. So it's not the 1 million followers anymore, it's not how big the sponsorship deal is, it's not the brands that we work with, it's what can we do to challenge ourselves. And I think that's our next chapter of success.
Thanks for sharing. And you're right, it's like success looks different for everyone. So being able to redefine it and continue to grow, that is a part of the journey. Which on the flip side, I want to talk about a campaign that didn't go the way you planned. So I'm like quote unquote failures. I feel like we learn through others, and that's when we learn is through the things that didn't go the way we planned. Can I share like a campaign that didn't go as we planned and what happened, what went wrong?
See, I remember this one clearly. If you guys look up on TikTok, Ginger Fringe Incident. And I don't know how many of you guys in the room know that, but that was something that we started, and it was a terrible incident. We had like, I think it was trending all over TikTok. Anybody that knew 12 Pel probably knew the Ginger Fringe Incident first. And that was when we had this young soul that came in here, like I think he was in middle school, and he had ginger hair. And he had a long, poofy, like stylish hair that like, at the time TikTok was trending with mid-length styles. And he had a consultation, which was a series that we pioneered on TikTok, which is where we transformed a guy's haircut from before and after. But this one, the before and after, the audience completely disagreed with what we did, and it became the incident. And it took to storm because we were taking off at the time. We had other influencers and content creators just remaking and be like, yo, 12 Pel effed him up. Like, oh man, he's leaving with tears. And like the comments were going crazy. And like literally for the next 6 months to almost a year, people were leaving comments on our things. Never forget Ginger Fringe. And like, I think 6 months in, we were thinking in our heads like, oh my God, we just gotta let it rock. We just gotta keep posting. No, they didn't give up. These kids were relentless. And so we finally, Gen Z did not give up. They're like, just give it up, man. But it was crazy because we were like, you know what, let's address this. And we took the L and we turned it into a W when we made fun of it ourselves. We got on a video, we addressed it, we brought him back in. And we were like, what did you think about the haircuts? Like, I loved it. And then we showed the viewers like our ability to make fun of the situation, which clearly was bad PR at one point. We were able to flip that into good PR. But I remember just thinking about like the anxiety of nights, thinking like, when is this gonna end? To like, okay, it's finally over.
One campaign that we did was not necessarily a failure, but it didn't go as well as I thought it would go. So we actually partnered with this one brand on a giveaway, and they had way more followers than we did. So I obviously got very excited. I was like, oh, I wonder, how many more community members we can gain from this. And I remember the post doing really well. We had a lot of impressions, we had a lot of new followers, we had a lot of engagement on the post. And then as soon as it ended, we also started to see probably like a bigger drop off than we would normally see. And I think just ultimately our takeaway from this was making sure that we always partner with the right partners. Like you want to partner with people that align with your missions, align with your values, and that you can have a shared customer base with, right? Not just because of their numbers. And I kind of always knew this in the back of my head, but sometimes you don't really know things until you try. And as long as you can take something away from it, I think it's going to always help you progress.
I'm actually going to talk about a partnership with KCC, but I think that it's, again, back in your previous question, we were talking about how we define success, and I think this question for me is about how you define failure. For me, Kolkata Chai Ani and I have worked together for a long, long time, but basically they came to me with a creative brief. And it was for a campaign with a really popular beauty influencer that wanted to do a campaign with Kolkata Chai. And they came to me with this brief. I think we had like 3 days, something crazy. So yeah, something crazy like that. And I remember having conversations with Ani of just feeling like I didn't have enough time and the bandwidth to actually make it work in the way that I wanted to make it work. And again, I'm coming from like a creative direction, creative strategy, like I'm coming from, different angles and trying to think of the visuals, and we just didn't have time to do all that. And we got the shots, and then I worked really, really closely with the photographer to make it work. And I remember feeling frustrated and telling Ani, I was just like, I just don't feel like we got a chance to do what we could have done. And I say all that to say, when it went live, it was a massive, massive success. It literally did all the numbers, and people just love that campaign. I actually had people reaching out to me being like, this is your work, this is amazing. And I was just like, really? Like, I didn't see it. And I think, again, it's about how you define failure, because to me it was a failure. It wasn't what I wanted it to look like, but only, I think perspective is also really important in that, like, everyone else didn't see that. It served, strategically it was really sound. It did amazing numbers, and people still refer to that campaign. And actually we did another one recently for National Chai Day to pull it all together. But yeah, for me, like, that was a failed moment, but more so a learning lesson of sometimes you just have to zoom out.
Yeah, that's right.
Imagine being on a panel next to somebody and they're like, my failure is with you. That's wild, but it wasn't even failure. I respect that. That's the standard that Reva plays to, so. Oh man, I'll keep it short. We had a partnership with this iconic New York institution a couple months ago that internally we were like not really sold on, but it was just, sometimes you have to do this thing because it's the right thing to do. And it was crickets, just didn't do well. We probably broke even on it financially. And it just took a lot of founder bandwidth, which is like that's how I evaluate is this a success or a failure, is how much bandwidth is it taking from me and what's my upside. And that thing didn't do well, my brother and I got over it. And then we had a chance to go back to that institution for a different campaign, but it was at that same kind of physical place. And we knew kind of everybody on the ground there already because we had worked with them previously. And the second time around, they were like, we got invited back to something bigger, and there's like a bigger partnership now in the works with that place. And my point is, sometimes stacking losses on top of each other actually turns into something different. And so failure should not be like in a snapshot moment. You should give it a little bit of time to kind of evaluate if that is really failure or if it's just not what you expected and not what you needed at that point in time, but you let it evolve into something different. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So now I'm gonna open up for Q&A. Does anyone have any questions for the panelists?
I don't need a mic, I can just ask. So I actually have a question for Reva. So you mentioned how you didn't like get the eventual vision that you wanted within that potential campaign, and I have sort of a similar question. So like, what is your mindset with pushing yourself to do creative work? Because personally, the reason why I'm asking is because I'm a street photographer. So a lot of the photography I do is within my own collections, but I also did it in high school and within classes. And so when I was pushed under like time restrictions, I felt like I wasn't able to match my potential.
Right.
And so how do you view your work at the point when it doesn't meet that potential? Do you still view it as like a part of your like creative portfolio, and do you view it as something that you like are fully confident in?
That's a great question. I actually balance.
Repeat the question.
Yeah, so I think the question, tell me if I butchered it, but is how do you balance doing creative work specifically for people that are in creative industries? So he is a street photographer. So how do you balance doing work that maybe has a quick timeline that you can't really creatively do what you want to do versus things that you actually love and are really proud of? That is an everyday battle, and I will tell you that it doesn't get necessarily easier per se with experience. I think it's just the trade-off that you kind of have to make all the time. What I will say is that I think that sometimes those creative projects that take less, or you don't have the luxury of time, challenge you in different ways, right? They challenge you in ways that you don't always think of when you have the luxury of time, and that's a positive. And then the other thing is the bags. Like sometimes you just gotta get a bag and do the job as best as you can, and it makes sense because then you can take that bag and pour it into the work that you actually are really passionate about. And I think that that's kind of like the industry trade secret in this industry, is that sometimes you really just gotta do the commercial thing, obviously as authentically as you can, like don't sell out your soul, ideally, but you have to do those things so that you have the time and bandwidth and capacity to do the things you love, because most of the things that you're gonna love or that fulfill you usually don't make money. So I really believe, Ani tells me that all the time as well, like take it from both of us, that sometimes it's worth doing that, and the way that you kind of justify it in your head is that you still know what your must-haves are, right? And then know what your like nice-to-haves are. If a project fulfills your must-haves, then it's a yes for me personally. And if it's, okay, no, these are my like fundamentals and like whatever it is, right? It could be pay, it could be the brand, whatever your must-haves are. Like I really want to do, if you really want to work for a really, really big brand and they're not paying you as much, you have to evaluate those decisions, right? Like you have to weigh what's worth it. But for me, it's usually those decisions that go into it, and every time they're different. I hope that helps.
We have time for one more question. Oh, yeah.
So one thing that we haven't heard about is we have an e-commerce company, and we kind of do something really boring, which is pay-per-click on Google Ads. I not heard anyone really talk about that. Is it because it doesn't work? Because it doesn't work for us.
I'll jump in there. Google AdWords is demand capture versus Meta's demand generation. So I think that is the short answer to figuring out if that platform is going to work for you. If you're generating demand off the internet, wherever it's in a community or through a viral campaign, people go and search for you. That's when you're going to capture demand. Versus if you're starting something new from the ground up, you need to generate demand, which is going to be more organic. It's going to be more TikTok. It's going to be more Instagram. So that's my 2 cents. Work on generating demand for your product, for your category, kind of high level, and then make sure you have the right campaign set up tactically to capture it.
Okay, can we talk later?
Yeah, one more question.
You guys are so awesome. I appreciate every single one of your insights. So you guys are all firsts, or not first, right? But like first in your industry. So being a first, right, especially a minority first, how do you ground yourself to not be like, oh yeah, like this is all me, but knowing that there's other people looking up to you to also want to be a first as well too. I don't know if that, did that make sense?
I'm struggling with the question.
So, you're a first in your industry, like as a minority, other people that are trying to do the same thing, right? How do you give them the advice of how do you also be a first without losing yourself, like selling your soul? How do you give that advice to other firsts?
Be like an advice to someone that's aspiring to be in the same position or in the same
Not the
industry.
same position, but the same, like
Similar.
Like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, advice for someone aspiring.
I think for me, it's just knowing your why. Like a lot of times, especially when you're one of the first, you can get very lost in comparing yourself with these other bigger traditional companies in your industry. Like for us, there are these massive companies in eyewear that pretty much monopolize the whole industry. So for us, we were just very, very small fish trying to do something that a lot of people were saying was just for a very niche market and there isn't really a business for you. But I think for us, especially coming from a background that wasn't necessarily eyewear, it really helped us to think more outside of the box and create something for people that there was a need, it's just that they were never seen. And so we hear from our community all the time of like, wow, I didn't even know glasses should fit like this. And so they're the ones that really inspire us and motivate us to keep going, especially during those times of trials and tribulations, which are bound to happen when you're running your own business.
What I have to say about that is, for us, we didn't realize that we were the first until we became the first. And I think in that position, it's recognizing that you're also not the last. And for me, I always look at the next generation because they are the next first. They will be. Like our parents looked at us as the next first. And we are the next first in our generation. But every generation has their next first. Every industry is constantly being reinvented. And I look at the next generation of talent that's in my pool, and I look at that and how can I invest in them so that they can be our next first in our industry and we can win together. Because the playing field is huge, it's humongous. And so the thing is that how do we, so I work with young talent every single day. Some of the guys I've got in my team have been with us since they were 17. My videographer over there, having a cup of water, or is joined us when he was 17 years old. And so like, I think that you have to see who's going to be the next first in the next generation, and you invest in them.
My quick 2 cents is that you have to approach it with abundance. And I think that sometimes in our communities we're taught to think with scarcity. I know that a lot of the older generations have had that mindset instilled in them that like there could be only one Asian person in the room or there could be only one brown girl in the room. And I've never by nature been that way, maybe to a detriment. I've always been a connector, and it's a big part of why we built Rooted and why we started Rooted is to connect folks. Our first one was literally in London. I don't even live there, but for me, I had a huge community, and I was like, look, if I can be the vessel in which you guys can meet and connect, and whether that turns into business opportunities, money, whatever, for just friendship, I'll leave, but you guys are still here building, and for me, it's really about that, approaching it with abundance, and like, I love connecting people. If I'm not the one, then maybe I definitely know somebody that can help you.
Well, thank you so much. We're gonna wrap up, and I just want to give you guys an opportunity to maybe share how we can stay connected and support you guys after. Ours is just IG. At Rooted Creative, if you guys want to give us a shout, and obviously you're all welcome to our cultural programming.
Yeah, if you're interested in connecting, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me, you can connect with me. Any questions that you have about social media, we're very on the ground with what's changing in the creator space.
Yes, you can join our community at Shop Covry, all over social.
do not hit me on LinkedIn. Please grab a cup of chai. Try it. Thank you guys for having us. No disrespect. I dress too well to be on LinkedIn. I'm not gonna be on that shit. Sorry.
Oh, he's not actually on LinkedIn.
I just changed my profile 2 days
What,
ago.
Kolkata chai? Ask Kolkata chai.
Just grab a couple chais. I love that. That's all I need. Thank you guys.
All right, thank you all for attending. Please give a round of applause for everyone here. They'll be around for pictures. If you want to come up and talk to them, they'll be here. So thank you so much.